Welcome back to that's fucking adorable. The series where I talk about how things don't go the way they were supposed to. Now, in today's episode, we're going to talk about a deal that did successfully close in Syracuse, New York. However, it just didn't go down the way that it was supposed to go down. All right. This deal took way too long. And we got out leveraged by our buyer and the attorneys that were involved. Now, let's start off with one of my favorite things, the live seller call.
Oh,
Hey, is Robert there?
who is this?
This is RJ Bates calling about your property there in Syracuse that you entered on my website.
Right.
Are you looking to sell that property?
Yes.
Awesome. How much are you looking to get for it?
About 40.
40K. I got a question for you before we talk about real estate. Are you actually a fan of the university, Syracuse?
Yeah, I guess.
I'm down here in Texas. I always thought Syracuse was one of the coolest schools because their mascot was the orange. I just thought that was I just thought that was cool, like. So, all right, let's see here. What's going on with this property?
All right. Well, basically, I have two families in there. It's a 2-unit multifamily. It could run for about 60 to 70 right now, but I'm just trying to get it out of my way.
I got you.
I've had to do some repairs to it. The basement was flooded at one point in time. I had to do the whole cleanup and fix a main pipe. There are several new things about the house, such as the hot water furnaces. There's actually one upstairs in the apartment that goes directly to the water line, and then there's a new one in the basement for the first floor. Electric is good. The roof is good. I just added a porch, brand new porch. What else could I tell you about the home?
What's the rent that they're paying?
It's about 12. It could be up more or less. It's just that I'm just working with the tenants there,
So they're like paying $600 each.
7 and 5.
7 and 5. Okay.
Right. There's a big room upstairs in the second unit, and then there's a very, very small room. I mean, it could go for a nursery or a child, and it's connected to the bathroom. There's a new faucet on the sink upstairs. The kitchen appliances downstairs are used but fairly new.
Okay.
They work. What else? What else could I tell you? The floors were done just about a year ago. There are new cabinets in the kitchen downstairs now, and it was painted not too long ago, maybe a couple of months ago, and it'll be painted again very, very shortly. So with all of that being said, I put a lot into it, enough into it. I was going to sell the home at some point. I had an offer for about 60, and it fell through because of the basement flood. It happened during the process of us making a deal.
Oh man.
Yeah, and that pretty much it hit me hard. That was about 2 months ago. Then I had another deal for about that fell through because it took me a little while to fix it.
Right.
Again, it had happened. I didn't know the whole problem, so I had to find out that it was the main line. in the front of the home. I had another offer for about the same amount, about 50, 55, 50, it was 57, but I was going to get 55 after I took care of the real estate broker. And that fell through again because of the same problem. So then I went and figured out that it was the main line. Now I'm just trying to get the house out of my head. I have other things to do, and I basically want to run it up and make another move. Basically, I'm an investor as well. I never planned on keeping this home in the first place, so I knew I was just going to take some rent for a while, fix it up as much as I could afford, and then go and buy something new.
I got you.
So now I'm at that point, and I know with these a lot of short sellers, they're not giving as much money as the property, not even close to it. It's probably like a fraction, right? Maybe a tenth or less, more or less. But I'm just trying to get a decent deal, and I know that I can't go any lower than 40.
Okay. You own it free and clear, right?
Excuse me?
Do you own it free and clear, or do you have a mortgage on it?
No, I have no mortgage on this particular home. And I'm pretty clear on that.
Okay. No thoughts of seller finance, right? Just cash only?
Yeah, cash only.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm just give me a second. I'm just looking at some different things around the area. I'm about 30 seconds away from saying, okay, I'll do 40. Make your day. Just because you said you're a Syracuse fan.
Should have said 45.
Right? Now, see, now I know you're a Syracuse fan. All right, there you go. You sold me. All right, I'll do 40. All right, so I got an email of.
Right.
Okay. So how have you opened title with an attorney or anybody like that?
I could work with an attorney. It would probably be easier for me because I'm a little scatterbrained when it comes to doing a lot.
Right.
I have so much on my plate. So me, you'll be waiting forever for me to get a mail out for a title, and then me having to send it to you. So yeah, an attorney would probably come in handy in this situation. I have a realtor on the job. I can talk to her and cut her out of the deal if I have to, so I could hold on to some money. Or else it will probably have to go up to 45 because there's a few things that I need to run. I would have to run by with her and an attorney. Yeah, I mean it's your call.
I mean, I don't want to pay for her because she ain't done nothing for me. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you came to my website and said I need 40K, and I'm saying, all right, I'll give it to you. You know, outside that, I don't need her to write up contracts or hold our hand. You know,
Right.
So if you could call her and see if she can bow out or something like that, I mean, that works for me. I'd rather just make it a simple transaction.
Right. Man, how long would that take?
I that's where it becomes like I want to get it done as quickly as possible, but I'm probably gonna say like 3-4 weeks, just because the last deal I just did up there in New York, it took us a freaking month just to get the attorneys to do their shit. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I'll put 30 days on there, but it's on or before 30 days. So it's really just about, I'm going to try and get done as quickly as possible. Because I know your position. I know what you want.
Right.
You want it done.
Yeah, basically. And it is taking too long. So yeah, that is my email.
So I'll send over the contract for the 40,000. You talk to the realtor to figure that out, and then as soon as you sign that contract, we'll get the process working. Okay.
All right. Thanks.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye-bye. Now, for the privacy of not showing phone numbers and addresses and things like that, I am going to go through my CRM notes here and kind of relay the information that took place, but I'm not going to share my screen. Okay, I don't want YouTube to take this video down. So what you just heard, that phone conversation took place on May 17th. Okay, sending a contract for 40,000, close in 30 days, and the monthly rent was $1,200 a month. I mean, this is a 3% rental, right? This is a banger of a deal. So I thought. Seller did sign the contract. We then got pictures back pretty quickly. We were uploaded to InvestorLift and started our dispositions marketing on May 23rd. So 6 days after that contract. It took a couple of days for him to sign and get his pictures and things like that. We then blasted it out on InvestorLift to 7,000 people and immediately started gaining traction. We got walkthroughs on the property and everything seemed pretty set up. I mean, it looks like we sent our assignment on June 1st. So from the initial acquisitions conversation, getting the contract signed, pictures, recon done, dispositions, marketing out, walkthroughs, and assigned assignment, it took us about 2 weeks. Okay. Now we had already opened up escrow with the closing attorney, and we felt like this is going to be a pretty smooth transaction and be able to make our 30-day close. That's when things went south. The buyer wanted to be represented by his own attorney, and come to find out that attorney ended up being a huge problem for many different reasons. First and foremost, he wanted to pull his own title work. Okay. Not a problem. Our attorney had already pulled title. He wanted to pull his own title report. So he did. Then his title report didn't come back in time. So he wanted to extend it 2 weeks. This is the first extension. Now, this did upset the seller, but it wasn't like a deal killer or anything like that. It was just kind of annoying. The next thing that actually happened was his attorney, I guess, apparently went out of business, just kind of disappeared. And the buyer said, hey, I've got to get a new attorney to represent me for the closing. All right. So we thought that was pretty weird. Then it took the buyer several weeks to be able to get a new attorney involved. This is where the seller started getting really impatient. Now, one of the benefits on how we communicate with sellers and we run our wholesale business is that we are transparent with sellers. And so the seller did know that we were wholesaling this property. The seller did not have a problem with that whatsoever. So we could be very transparent about the fact that this is not due to us here at Titanium. It says everything to do with our end buyer. Now, it eventually got to a point where the seller started asking us if we could attempt to find a new buyer. Now, the problem with that is we had extended out the assignment and the original purchase and sell agreement. And so we've already assigned our rights to this contract to this end buyer. We cannot go assign it to someone else unless either they do not perform or there is a termination. The buyer was adamantly disagreed, like, no, I want to purchase this property. And then things started getting funky. There were some issues with the property. There was some flooding. There were some additional damages down in the basement. So then the buyer wanted to renegotiate the price. So we have an upset seller. We have damages to the property, and now we have a buyer saying we need to renegotiate the price. Huge cluster at this point, right? The seller's feeling some kind of a way because of the extensions and the new buyer's attorney and the delays, but now there's an actual issue. And so on our side, we actually have to communicate that, convey the information, run down the numbers, educate the seller, and convince them essentially to give us the renegotiated price, which we did successfully. But that wasn't the only price reduction that was going to be needed. So then the buyer says, hey, I actually want to purchase the property vacant. I don't want to inherit this tenant. Can we please have the seller ask this tenant to be removed? So he does. You have to give the tenant time. So another extension has to be put in place. So now we have extended because of the delay on the initial buyer's title report. That attorney disappeared. Then there was the delays in finding the new attorney. Then there was property damage, renegotiate the price. Now we need the tenant to be removed. Then there's issues with a past due water bill and back taxes. The new buyer's attorney comes in. He also wants to pull his own title report, which he does, and then mandates that the seller needs to pay off the back taxes and the past due water bill prior to closing. And the buyer will not allow his funds to pay those off at closing like every other real estate transaction in the history of time. It's like, come on. Why can't this be done? Nope, adamantly disagree. So we started going back and forth, and like we're now communicating with this attorney, and we're trying to find some middle ground here. Like, guys, this is a distressed seller, right? There's a reason why you're getting this property at a wholesale price. And some of that has to do with the lack of funds. But yet you're asking the seller to come up with money. So we had to go to the seller and ask. And again, extremely uncomfortable conversations, like repeatedly. And at this point, we're at the end of July. Okay, we're approaching August. Now remember, this deal started in the middle of May. Just way too long. So the original purchase price on this property was $40,000. And remember, it was rented out for $1,200 a month. We now have renegotiated the price down to $30,000. And then the buyer comes back and says the most he'd be willing to pay for it is $27,000. Said he found something else that was wrong with the property, and the most he will do is spend $27,000. Now, here's the problem. We, as the wholesaler, have lost all leverage in this deal. We can't go find a new buyer. We don't have any more time. So we really don't have any ground to stand on, because the buyer's basically like, I don't need to buy this. I want to buy it, but the most I'll give you is $27,000. So we go to the seller. We get him to agree to $25,000. So that's the lowest he could go, is $25,000. And honestly, like, we feel bad at this point. I almost feel like we're not even doing a service to the seller. And I have no intentions of ever doing business with this buyer again. Right? I always talk about building relationships with a buyer. This guy, absolutely not. That's not going to happen. So we start going back and forth with the buyer's attorney about trying to get closing scheduled. And essentially, the buyer's attorney starts telling us, we'll let you know when we're ready to close. So as I'm scrolling through here, we're now into August. No update on closing. No update on what we're waiting on. And we were just being ghosted, basically. Like, no communication whatsoever. So at this point, we're like, well, maybe they aren't going to perform. So we started trying to dispo the deal again. We started reaching out to some of the other people that were interested in the property to begin with. And then here comes the buyer's agent. We're going to be ready to close at the end of the month. So the end of August. Okay. What's been the holdup? Buyer wasn't ready. Buyer will let you know when he's ready. So now we're concerned that this is a money issue, right? Is that what we're waiting on? So we continue to try to dispose deal, find someone else while we're waiting for the end of August. Now, as I quickly scroll up here, long-winded emails, communication going back and forth. On September 7th, the buyer's attorney tells us that we are ready to close. On September 14th, we want to know why, what are we waiting on still? At this point, the seller says the only thing that we're waiting on is for the buyer's attorney to schedule closing. The seller's attorney's upset. The seller's upset. We're upset. The buyer's attorney rarely communicates with us, and the buyer won't answer the phone anymore. We actually thought we were going to be able to take his earnest money and move on, but at the last minute, based off of the extensions that had been sent and everything that had taken place, the buyer comes through and closes. And this deal actually, by the time it funded, this is what's hilarious. I see here it closed sometime in September. We got our wire on October 9th. So from the middle of May to October 9th, one buyer, it took us 2 weeks to get the contract signed, recon, send an assignment, $15,000 in price drops, an astronomical amount of extensions that were sent for us to make $2,000 wholesaling what I thought was a really good deal in Syracuse, New York. It was ridiculous. And I say this all the time to people that come inside of Titanium University. I get if you're from New York or New Jersey and you want to do deals in those locations. But if you're in a place like Texas, like we are, you're in one of the best locations, the wholesale. Why in the world would you ever want to do a deal in New York? And for us, we have made the decision to be nationwide. We got this lead for $100. It was from Lead Zolo back in the day. And so it was just, it's not like we specifically targeted Syracuse, New York. No, the lead just came to us as part of our nationwide marketing efforts. And so we have to take the good and the bad, right? We get the cheapest leads. So our average cost per contract is super low, but then we run into situations like this. Every now and then we'll run into a property that's extremely difficult to dispo because it's super rural or in a location where people just aren't buying. But also we run across attorney states, places specifically like New York, which are miserable to close transactions. I personally just think that this seller or this buyer wanted to run us out of the transaction, even though we only ended up making $2,000 on it. But you have to remember, the original assignment was for about $20,000 more. Now, I look at this and the lesson that we can take from this is never lose leverage in a transaction. And we did not get enough earnest money deposit on this. We only got $2,000. It wasn't really enough to keep the buyer liable or kind of responsible in the transaction. I wish we would have gotten $5,000 non-refundable EMD. But also, when the original attorney ghosted, we probably should have terminated, released the non-refundable earnest money back to that buyer, and went and found a new buyer. That is probably what we should have done. to gain the leverage back and to get a better buyer in place. Now, of course, during that time, we could have never anticipated that this would have taken 5+ months for this deal to close and fund. Never. But it was a lesson learned. And at the end of the day, the seller did get his deal moved. And was it for the amount of money that he wanted or needed? Probably not. But that was mainly due to the damages that were done with the tenants that were living in the property. It really didn't have a lot to do with this specific buyer, outside of the fact that the buyer elongated the process and caused those extensions. So from all of the deals that we've done, this is a perfect example right here of a deal that closed, but it definitely falls under the category of, man, that's fucking adorable. So Syracuse, New York, check. Not much, $2,000, but we got it done. Make sure you give me a like. We need it. That one hurt. I'll still never forget this one. I did enjoy the phone conversation talking about Otto the Orange, Syracuse Orangeman. That's all I know about Syracuse. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. We'll see you tomorrow.